The tale is poised to unfold. To all gathered in this assembly, please elevate your demeanor. A captivating narrative is about to begin. I am a universally despised protagonist in the narrative of Dragon Aotion. After my fruitless pursuits of conquest, I find myself consumed by an insatiable yearning for oblivion, ardently desiring to expedite my return to my previous existence. Once I have surrendered the yearning to endure, those who once betrayed me come back in multitudes, longing for my mercy. They implore me not to dissolve into the abyss, not to simply disappear. Yet I have long since forsaken them. I find myself completely devoid of the capacity to alter the fate of the infatuated secondary female character within the Dragon Overlord narrative. I long to reimagine her tragic denouement, wherein she succumbs to desolation and ultimately chooses to terminate her own life, tormented by an unreturned love for the male protagonist. Nevertheless, she chose to forego our engagement banquet for the sake of a mere telephone call from the male protagonist. Once the crowd had dissipated, I found myself alone on the terrace of the highest floor in Lushur. In the recesses of my mind, I eternally yearned for affirmation from a system. Would the relinquishment of this physical existence grant me the opportunity to return to my true haven? Upon receiving the system's positive response, I embarked on my journey toward the threshold. Having taken but 2 steps, a sudden burst of laughter echoed behind me. I turned to behold a familiar face by Ningbing, my sister not by blood, but united by the bonds of affection. At the tender age of 7, I had rescued her from a heap of refuse and welcomed her into my home, where we relied upon one another until she reached the age of 14, at which point she was reclaimed by her affluent parents. Upon our reunion, she had already evolved into a fervent admirer of the male protagonist, Rong-yi. In days gone by, I labored at 3 occupations to gather the means for her education, devoting my heart and soul to this noble pursuit. It was only sufficient to ignite her enthusiasm during our first meeting. Yet upon realizing that I aligned with the whispers that portrayed me as a jealous, malevolent, and despicable character, she was left with nothing but disdain and a cautious attitude towards me. At present, amidst the enchanting engagement banquet commemorating my union with the delightful Lu Ruyan, the startling revelation of the male protagonist, Rong-yi, having been abducted and disappearing without a trace, has abruptly seized the attention of all the guests, including my cherished fiancé, Lu Ruyan. Before her departure, she grasped my wrist with unwavering resolve, her eyes conveying a solemn warning. "I beseech you, let this not be your doing." Having uttered these weighty words, she departed without casting a single glance behind her. This moment marked the 100th instance since I became entangled in this narrative that she chose Rong-yi over me. Consequently, the system has rendered my efforts futile. The fundamental cause of the unwavering devotion demonstrated by the enamored secondary female lead resides within her own rationale. What is frequently referred to as redemption is merely a deceptive notion embraced by both the tactician and the system. In the midst of this reflection, I found myself unable to suppress a soft smile that graced my lips. As I observed by Ningbing before me, my eyes no longer reflected the warmth of our once cherished companionship. I find myself confounded by the rationale that sustains your steadfast presence nonetheless. It would be prudent for you to refrain from meddling in my affairs. I implore you to exercise patience, otherwise, you risk forfeiting the opportunity to garner the admiration of your revered idol. Ultimately, the purported abduction has persistently been a meticulously orchestrated spectacle by Rong-yi and her family, designed solely to subvert the union between Lu Ruyan and me on this day. Once they have all assembled, Rong-yi shall make her grand entrance. Perhaps she has never before experienced such a demeanor from me. Bai Ningbing's expression attested to this. I had merely intended to articulate a few words, yet I have already averted my gaze, no longer observing her presence. Now, with my aspirations for victory dashed, I find myself devoid of purpose in this life. The sole comfort lies in the recognition that the system acknowledged my unwavering dedication to my obligations, which ultimately resulted in the approval of my plea for exemption from penalties. Given that I may transcend this realm within the boundaries she has outlined, I shall evade the grim destiny of obliteration. However, the corporeal form I inhabited in my previous existence is already beset by suffering and can barely endure the relentless march of time. Before I commence my tale, the gaze of my parents was suffused with a profound sorrow. I found myself unable to suppress my gritted teeth, urgently quickening my pace towards the balustrade. Qixia, what occupies your mind? As I approached the fence, the voice of Bai Ningbing, once laced with disdain, now reverberates with a sense of pressing urgency. She diligently mirrored my every movement. What strategy do you plan to employ next? This perspective on life and death proves futile when confronted with Sister Lu. Were you not already cognizant of that? Moreover, the multitude of mistakes you have committed pales in comparison to the virtues of Brother Rong, even in the event that you encounter your end here today. Bai Ningbing's voice abruptly faded into silence, for in her gaze, I betrayed not a trace of uncertainty as I leaped over the railing, descending towards the resplendent city, aglow with twinkling lights. The universe reveals itself to me in an infinite panorama. The tormented cries of a nocturnal breeze gently brush against my ears, yet they are utterly incapable of quelling the exuberant flutter that dwells within my soul. I stand at the threshold of my homecoming, eager to be enveloped in the tender embrace of my beloved parents and dear friends, departing from the burdens of grievances and regrets that I have carried over the years. In but a fleeting moment, I discover myself unable to resist the temptation to close my eyes. In the following instant, the sensation of falling was abruptly arrested. As a hand grasped my arm, the acute pang from my strained muscles pulled me back into the realm of reality. I awakened, my gaze fixed upon the portion of my body entrapped within the railing, my hands firmly clutching my pristine, frigid determination. I spoke to her with a serene composure. Bai Ningbing clenched her teeth firmly, her eyes becoming inflamed from the exertion. She remarked, "Qixia, this time you have triumphed. You embodied your character with remarkable authenticity, however. Such deeds cannot change the fundamental nature of reality. Sister Lu Shi, release your grip." I find myself no longer desiring to utter the name Lu Ruyan. An involuntary shiver courses through me. In a fleeting moment, Bai Ningbing charged toward me, leaving no time for reflection. Fortunately, she found herself ensnared within the crevices of the railing. As time elapsed, she discovered herself progressively ensnared, her delicate arms quivering incessantly from the strain. At this juncture, as I pressed forward, she could no longer bear it, unable to contain herself. She cried out fervently, "Do not sway. I am genuinely on the brink of collapsing." Observing that my mind had not grasped her words in the slightest, Bai Ningbing, in a moment of sheer desperation, inhaled deeply and softened her tone, articulating, "I cannot remain indifferent to your peril. Should you continue down this path, I too shall be ensnared. Can you genuinely bear to witness our mutual descent into oblivion, Brother Xia?" Her tone was warm and affectionate, imbued with a playful nuance, reminiscent of the days when she dwelled within my abode and we relied upon one another for companionship. During that period, I perceived Bai Ningbing as my only family in this vast world, showering her with an extraordinary degree of indulgence. As a result, she cultivated a penchant for affectionately vying for my attention. Now I raise my gaze, encountering the girl's eyes, which twinkle like celestial bodies. She returns my gaze. Beneath her fad of tranquility resides a concealed eagerness. She awaits my reply. In light of this reflection, I discover myself nearly chuckling at my own excessive sentimentality. Indeed, I let out a laugh. Locking my gaze with hers, I articulated each word with intention. "What relevance does your demise hold for me?" The flush that adorned the young girl's visage vanished in an instant, as though my reply transcended her understanding. Bai Ningbing gazed at me in a stupor, her hold on my hand gradually slackening. In a fleeting moment, an overwhelming wave of anticipation surged within my heart. I observed her fingers delicately positioned, ready to relinquish their hold completely. Abruptly, a piercing cry of alarm erupted from the periphery, swiftly accompanied by desperate pleas for assistance echoing all around. Bai Ningbing regained her composure, her grip on my hand firm, as if still haunted by lingering fears. Her gaze fell upon her own hand, which had nearly slipped from its hold moments before, revealing a tapestry of emotions. Once we were both rescued, she transformed from her usual confrontational demeanor into an unexpected silence. As I sought to seize an opportunity to leap from the railing once more, Bai Ningbing navigated through the throng of onlookers. With unwavering determination, she grasped my wrist, declaring, "The matter concerning Brother Rome remains unresolved, and you are the primary suspect. It is my duty to keep vigilant watch over you." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and upon noticing my gaze upon her, she averted her head in a huff. In that fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of sorrow etched upon her countenance. What could she possibly be mourning? A self-deprecating smile tugged at my lips. In the beginning, Bai Ningbing, the only daughter of the Bai family, was kidnapped and subsequently forsaken by the adversaries of her parents' enterprise. A young girl meanders through the impoverished slums, harassed by her peers, and chased away by fierce dogs. Ultimately, with no sanctuary in sight, she finds solace amidst a pile of refuse at the entrance of the alley. In the sweltering heat of July, the air was alive with the shimmering presence of fireflies and beetles. She would prefer to withstand the pungent odor of the refuse pile than to take even a single step beyond the shadows of that poorly illuminated alley. She curled into a diminutive sphere, awaiting the embrace of decay among the mice and cockroaches. In that fleeting moment, her sole endeavor was to reach out to me as I traversed the alley upon my return from school. Subsequently, I liberated her from the debris, purified her meticulously, and adapted my mother's previous attire to suit her form. At that time, I was but 12 years of age, an orphan, partitioning the aid bestowed by the community into two segments for two souls to partake. I am a spirit journeying through the womb. In that moment, I had not yet awakened to my identity as a strategist. I bore no remarkable talents or advantages. To guarantee that Bai Ningbing has literature to peruse and sustenance to indulge in, I traverse the streets and alleys each day post-classes to gather discarded materials. Each weekend, I lend a hand in washing dishes at a charming little restaurant. The presence of child laborers below the age of 18 remains an overlooked reality. My earnings are considerably inferior to those of my contemporaries. I am required to cleanse 4 dishes to acquire a mere 2 cents. Yet, how many dishes must I wash to reveal the destiny that awaits Bai Ningbing and myself? I find myself in a state of uncertainty. I can only mechanically lift the plate time and again, rinsing and scrubbing it incessantly. Within the stifling confines of the restaurant kitchen, the relentless, whirring fan contends with the obstinate, lingering grease stains. These marks have transformed into indelible reminiscences of my youth, eternally imprinted in my consciousness. I too sought answers from Bai Ningbing. Amidst the throng traversing that narrow passage, what was it that distinguished me from the rest? In that moment, she was but a youthful maiden, who, upon hearing my inquiry, lifted her gaze and graced me with a luminous smile. She professed that she had intentionally selected me after meticulous observation. Yet she firmly believed that I embodied true kindness. Such was Bai Ningbing, who, after being taken from us at the tender age of 14, has since disappeared without a remnant. Once, she fervently declared her unwavering faith in my integrity and kindness. However, when faced with the male protagonist's persistent conflicts with me, she wavered only briefly before decisively aligning herself with his faction. Subsequently, she vehemently denounced me, expressing her deep disappointment and contempt. Now, propelled by her resolute desire to supplant Rong Yi, she has devoted an entire span of time to contemplating my very existence. I could no longer discover an opportunity for self-destruction. She summoned a number of bodyguards, who maintained a vigilant watch over me throughout the journey. Meanwhile, having witnessed my 2 steadfast attempts to leap from the building, she finally comprehended that I was not merely craving attention, I truly yearned to extinguish my existence. Her attitude towards me underwent a significant transformation, and even during our travels, she patiently endeavored to offer me counsel. She observed, "Despite the multitude of mistakes you have made in the past, my brother possesses a magnanimous spirit. Provided that you offer him a heartfelt apology, we can restore our previous harmony." I retained scant interest in her discourse and traversed the journey with my eyelids closed, only stirring slightly when she uttered the name Lu Ruyan. Bai Ningbing, perceiving my reaction, infused her smile with a hint of self-deprecation. Nevertheless, I found myself unwilling to engage with her capricious emotions at that juncture. With steadfast devotion to Lu Ruyan, who harbors deep affection for the male protagonist, it appears that inciting her through him may compel her to take extreme measures, possibly even to terminate my existence. After all, Lu Ruyin is my designated target, a profoundly enamored yet delicate secondary female character within this tale. She emerges from a distinguished lineage, endowed with a formidable heritage, yet her formative years were tainted by sorrow. Rong-yi stood as the sole beacon of hope and redemption during her youth. Even as she evolved into a commanding presence, capable of effortlessly directing those around her, her heart remained unerringly devoted to Rong-yi, despite having encountered a multitude of individuals. Ultimately, after clearing the path for the female lead and witnessing the harmonious culmination of the male and female protagonist's love story, she chose to embrace solitude, surrendering to the depths of the sea to bring her own existence to a close. My odyssey commenced when the male protagonist, Rong-yi, transferred to our school in my second year of high school, awakening my identity as a strategist. At that juncture, Lu Rian had resolutely decided to brave the tempest rather than accept an umbrella from Rong-yi, the object of her fervent affection. Yet her feelings for Rong-yi were both clandestine and profound. She was even willing to embrace another man, one for whom she harbored no love, solely to elicit joy in Rong-yi. That man was I. During that era, Rong-yi mistakenly believed that I shared a tender bond with the female protagonist, Shun Yu-chu, and sought solace in the depths of inebriation. Despite Lu Ruyan's earnest endeavors to provide comfort, her efforts were rendered futile. Ultimately, Lu Ruyan resolved to pursue me, placing her rival who stood in opposition to Rong-yi directly before her. Ironically, she believed her actions to be noble, convinced they would indeed sway Lu Ruyan's affections. In the end, she succeeded in touching Lu Ruyan's heart and even jested with the system, asserting that with the right calculations, even a frigid goddess could be swayed. The iceberg can indeed be stirred, yet, lamentably, not for my benefit. Bai Ningbing sits watchfully beside me in the parlor, her demeanor exceptionally austere, rendering me completely incapacitated. In my profound ennui, I resorted to a game, when all at once, a voice from beyond proclaimed the return of Lu Ruyan, and in that ephemeral instant, my gaming device was violently wrenched from my hold. Lu Ruyan's delicate brows and captivating eyes unexpectedly materialized before me. Before I could respond, she forcefully thrust me to the ground. A wave of suffocation surged from my throat as her hands exerted their full strength, constricting my neck. Her crimson nails dug into my flesh. As I raised my gaze, I became ensnared in her stare, her eyes shimmering with a hint of crimson. She commanded, "Where, in the world, have you concealed Rong-yi? It has come to light that no one was discovered." I found myself unable to restrain a smile, reflecting, indeed, he embodies the quintessential male protagonist. Even amidst the establishment of the theater troupe, he remains elusive, surely to tantalize the audience's yearning. Perhaps my smile has incited her ire. Lu Ruyan's blows have grown increasingly merciless, as though she genuinely desires to obliterate me here. Only then would the bitterness in her heart be assuaged. In regard to this, I remain remarkably unperturbed. Strike me down directly. In that instant, not only shall I reclaim my rightful place, but Lu Ruyan, that despicable woman, will also bear the full brunt of justice, spending the twilight of her existence confined within prison walls. Suddenly, a gasp resonated from the vicinity. Bai Ningbing hastened towards me, forcefully thrusting Lu Ruyan aside. Her visage was a tapestry of wrath as she steadied me, positioning herself protectively behind me. "You nearly took his life," she proclaimed. Lu Ruyan, initially startled, raised her gaze upon hearing those words. As her eyes traversed over me, standing silently behind Bai Ningbing, her demeanor reverted to one of apathy. "Bai Ningbing," she asserted, "Qi Xia is my betrothed. Whatever transpires between us is of no concern to you." With that, she brushed past Bai Ningbing, descending directly towards me. "7 lives converge today. Come forth." I can no longer summon Lu Ruyan with the same ease as before. Bai Ningbing before me can no longer contain her protective embrace. "You are cognizant that he is your betrothed." I called out to her. "You are cognizant that he is your betrothed. This is how you typically regard him. Who grants you the permission to treat him in such a manner?" He orchestrated the abduction of Rong-yi, and the fate of Rong-yi remains shrouded in uncertainty to this day. Ultimately, Lu Ruyan was stirred by her words, her delicate brows and eyes contorting in agitation. "Do you recall the moment you first returned home?" Who was it that graciously accompanied you, guiding you through the realm of the unfamiliar? They ushered you back into this circle, liberating you from the perils of exclusion. In light of such benevolence, let not your heart dwell in ingratitude. Bai Ningbing fell into silence upon hearing this. Concerning the matter of Rong Yi, she would not easily yield. Yet in this moment of prolonged quietude, she unexpectedly broke the silence. Is there any evidence? What? I inquired. Is there any evidence? Bai Ningbing's voice became increasingly fervent. From the outset, no proof has surfaced to implicate Qi Xia. On what basis do you all pursue him with such unrelenting fervor? Upon hearing these words, I could not restrain myself from casting a glance at her. It appears she was cognizant from the very beginning. One ought to uphold the truth in every circumstance. However, in the past, when she baselessly accused Rong Yi, how could she possess such self-righteousness? Has he not already inflicted sufficient harm upon Rong Yi? Lu Ruyan's voice, tinged with fury, grew somewhat raspy. Throughout the years, he has consistently plotted against Rong Yi, appropriating her possessions. These are events attested by all. Each time, Rong Yi graciously extends his forgiveness towards him. Is that not sufficient? Bai Ningbing lapsed into silence, while I, positioned behind her, inadvertently overheard their dispute and could not suppress a chuckle. Naturally, Rong Yi must absolve me without my presence. Who else could illuminate his magnificence and altruism as the male protagonist? Just as my patience began to wane, unable to stifle a yawn, I felt an irresistible urge to utter words that would incite Lu Ruyan to strike me. It was at this moment that Bai Ningbing interjected, declaring I believe him. What? This time, a wave of incredulity enveloped me. I have unwavering faith in Qi Xia. I am thoroughly convinced of his innocence. Bai Ningbing resolutely reaffirmed this assertion, positioning himself defiantly against Lu Ruyan. The scrutiny directed towards us deepened with an enigmatic intensity. Refrain from placing your faith in my utterances. I stand beside her, adorned with a smile that does not illuminate my eyes. She resolutely claims that I am the antagonist. After countless occurrences, this one bears little significance. As I prepare to walk past Bai Ningbing, she clasps my wrist with unwavering strength. I glance back over my shoulder. Yet she did not direct her gaze towards me. Instead, she fixated on Lu Ruyan, who sat opposite her. She posed the question, what circumstances might compel an individual to affirm their innocence through the ultimate sacrifice of death? Do not be deceived by her, Lu Ruyan warned with an icy demeanor. Nevertheless, Bai Ningbing chose to disregard her caution. She persisted, throughout this odyssey, I have contemplated this profound inquiry. If an individual feels so grievously wrong that they fear not even death, opting for such a drastic measure to validate their innocence, it can only signify pausing for a fleeting moment. Her voice imbued with melancholy can only signify that she has endured innumerable instances of being misjudged by all, unable to voice her suffering, and thus resorts to this tragic means of proving her truth. Lu Ruyan, it was precisely at the moment you forsook him that he sprang from the edifice right before my gaze. He earnestly yearned for nothing more than to flee from existence. Exquisite. I believe I have attained a revelation. Bai Ningbing had been casting surreptitious glances in my direction throughout the afternoon. What could she be envisioning within the confines of her mind? I harbor a fear that during my own descent, the genuine smile that illuminated my countenance at the thought of returning home may have been misinterpreted by her as an exuberant laughter stemming from emancipation. I observed Lu Ruyan's delicate fingers trembling slightly at her side. A trace of torment glimmered in her eyes. I found it nearly impossible to suppress the impulse to interject and interrupt their flights of fancy. Yet in that ephemeral instant, I was drawn by Ningbing towards the threshold of the Lu abode. She incessantly prattled on, voicing her incredulity, yet declared, this time, I place my trust in you, Qi Xia. Accompany me. To my surprise, I instinctively shrugged her off. Under Bai Ningbing's astonished stare, I bestowed upon her a frigid smile. I speak of Bai Ningbing, do not disguise your malevolence any longer. At this juncture, I possess not a fragment of trust in you. After all, observing her present disposition while remaining in her company, I find myself devoid of any hope of returning home. Whether engulfed in a tempest of rage or ensnared in her current turmoil, Lu Ruyan becomes ever more vulnerable to instigation. With the appropriate strategies, one might attain the ideal resolution of her confinement, thus facilitating my journey back home. Having faced repeated refusals from me, I expected Bai Ningbing to react with indignation, perhaps resorting to her customary sarcasm. Yet, to my surprise, such an outburst never materialized. The young girl merely gazed at me in silence, a veil of mist slowly gathering in her eyes. "I shall not permit you to come to harm," she eventually said before turning away. I then cast a glance back at the silent Lu Ruyan. "Your rapport with her is remarkably cordial. Her disposition continues to be as distant as it has always been, yet a trace of resentment resides in her gaze, unrecognized even by her own consciousness. Nonetheless, this is permissible, for I am the one who nurtured her. This marks my initial insight into the bond share between Zhu Lu and Bai Ningbing. For an extended period, her ignominious history of wandering through the alleys of destitution has been artfully obscured by the Bai family. No one can ascertain with certainty how she endured. With whom did she share those moments? In the next instant, the world around me whirled in disarray. Abruptly, I found myself propelled onto the sofa by Lu Ruyan. Her hand lingered once again upon my neck and shoulders, a striking contrast to her earlier brusqueness. This time, her touch was soft, almost suffused with a warmth that bordered on tenderness. I maintained my gaze, silently connecting with her. Following an extended silence, she seemed to have reached a compromise. Emitting a gentle sigh, loosening her hold, her thumb delicately traced the contours of my neck and shoulder, the bruise she had earlier highlighted. As she gradually inclined her head against my chest, she implored, "Let us not tarry. Kindly divulge Rong Yi's present address." In that ephemeral instant, within her eyes, I distinctly perceived a profound depth of affection, evoking memories of a not-so-distant past, when, adorned with a wedding ring, she posed the question of whether I would accept her as my bride. In that fleeting moment, her gaze radiated a remarkable tenderness. She proclaimed, irrespective of the tribulations we had faced, that as long as I treated her with kindness in the future and abstained from further missteps, we would remain blissfully united. Yet, at that juncture, I had already begun to grasp the nature of her pursuit of my heart. It was solely for the happiness of Rong Yi that I endured. My heart had long since turned to ice in her regard. Yet, in the name of fulfilling my duty, I stifled the pangs of humiliation and accepted the engagement ring she proffered on behalf of another man. The instant the ring adorned my finger, Lu Ruyan's expression transformed into one of relief, and amidst the jubilant cheers of the assembled crowd, she bestowed upon me a kiss that was unexpectedly gentle. Although she was soon called away by the news of Rong Yi's misfortune, I now behold her countenance once again, slowly unfurling into a smile. Lu Ruyan's eyes glimmered with a newfound radiance, and a glimmer of hope infused her voice as she implored, "Xia, might you exhibit a touch more compliance? I am willing to pardon this incident on the condition that you abstain from inflicting any further distress upon Rong Yi in the future. We may persist in reveling in our bliss." Envisioning, her utterances were abruptly halted by my voice. Does such a charming event genuinely exist? Lu Ruyan, do you envision yourself amidst a harem? Do you still anticipate that I will coexist amicably with him? If you harbor the audacity, then take my life without hesitation. Do not assume that I am intimidated. Her tone turned frigid. Come forth. You shall not claim my life, for that would reveal your cowardice. I have unleashed my fierce words. Yet it was but a fleeting moment, before I succumbed to weariness, my vision dimming as I slipped into unconsciousness. In my state of oblivion, the system implored me to expedite my actions, for my time in this realm was waning. Upon regaining consciousness, my mind remained shrouded, and gentle hands tenderly caressed my face, occasionally accompanied by soft, fervent kisses. I suspected this must be a mere figment of my imagination. I had pursued Lu Ruyan for 7 years, spending 5 of those years by her side as her beloved. Yet the instances of her initiating a kiss were few and far between, countable on a single hand. However, this illusion grew increasingly vivid. Even now, her voice, imbued with a sense of helplessness, lingers in my ears. She lamented, "Xia, what am I to do with you? I can no longer bear this." As I opened my eyes, I was met with the tumultuous emotions reflected in Lu Ruyan's gaze, emotions that had no time to retreat. For a fleeting moment, I found myself momentarily entranced. Before me, Lu Ruyun had always exuded composure and restraint. Rarely had I witnessed such a look in her eyes, an intricate blend of despair, joy, suppression, and reluctance. A multitude of sentiments intertwined, rendering her countenance unexpectedly alien. Yet, this unfamiliarity lasted no more than 2 seconds. Soon, her expression regained its fortitude as she informed me of Rong Yi's whereabouts. Her voice was low, almost beguiling, while her hand nonchalantly played with a syringe. Noticing my gaze drawn to it, she graciously offered an introduction, a substance that circulates solely within the upper echelons of society, valued at millions per milliliter. It can provoke a painful demise within 3 minutes, with the forensic report attributing the cause to a heart attack. At her words, I chuckled, leading Lu Riyun to believe that I had finally regained my senses. The solace in my gaze had only just begun to ascend, only to be abruptly replaced by shock as I took hold of her hand that clutched the syringe. Under her vigilant stare, I drove the needle into my own neck. Permit me to divulge a secret. In my last moments, I beheld the astonished and powerless eyes of Lu Riyun. Once, I had treated you with kindness. It is due to my profound affection for you. I'm cognizant of that. She quivers as she holds me close. Turning to summon a physician with all her might, I rest against her shoulder, fulfilling the sentiments left unexpressed. I declare, I love you. Fulfilling the sentiments left unexpressed. I love you. Yet, you have never genuinely placed your trust in my words. Thus, let be. I now find myself sharing existence in this realm with you, a notion that fills me with profound aversion. Having articulated my thoughts, I forcefully extricated myself from her grasp, tumbling away from her embrace. The descent felt as though time had been suspended. I could vividly discern the bewilderment and sorrow etched upon her visage. Would Lu Riyun also mourn for my plight? Yet, I swiftly dismissed the notion. It appears I must indeed return home. Amidst my inner turmoil, I heard the basement door being flung open, and a familiar voice resonated through the air. It belonged to my neighbor, the sister who had perpetually extended her kindness towards me, the central figure of this narrative, Shen Yuchu. I could hear her hurried footsteps drawing near, accompanied by an urgent proclamation that nearly shattered into a falsetto. Rong, he has been located. It was the work of the Rong family's sworn nemesis. What did you utter? The quivering voice of Lu Riyun resonated. As the dialogue progressed, I found it increasingly challenging to grasp the spoken words. My awareness became insubstantial. I felt as if my spirit had risen into the ether. The gentle and affectionate smiles of my parents were tantalizingly close. As I reached out to envelop them in my embrace, an overpowering force yanked me back. Upon reopening my eyes, I discovered myself still enveloped in this mortal vessel. Before me stretches the immaculate white ceiling of the hospital. You have awakened. A soft, feminine voice arises from beside me. I turn my head, and my eyes meet the anxious gaze of Shen Yuchu. Clad in an exquisite qipao, with silver-rimmed spectacles delicately resting on her nose, she epitomizes the essence of the heroine in this narrative. Her innate grace and composure require no adornment, radiating an aura of cultivated elegance. Yet, at this juncture, my mind is preoccupied with a singular inquiry. Why do I still draw breath? Disappointment saturates my voice, impossible to disguise. Shen Yuchu hesitates, her hands coming to a standstill. After what feels like an eternity, she exhales softly, placing aside the item she holds. She approaches, adjusting the blanket draped over me, her gaze imbued with the tenderness that envelopes the room. In light of recent developments, I have clarified the situation for them. Lu Riyun abstains from encountering you due to her sense of shame. It is they who owe you an apology. Do not dwell on it excessively. As she spoke, she tenderly stroked my head. Ultimately, I still have my sister to depend upon. I burrowed further into the blankets, watching her movements, unable to stifle a wry smile. Sister, your paramour has persistently deceived others, implying that I am the perpetrator of the crime. Should she not publicly offer an apology to me? Shen Yuchu's demeanor became rigid, and in this moment, she found herself at a loss for words. Throughout, Shen Yuchu has been the one who fervently championed my cause in this realm. At least, such was the facade presented to the world. In my youth, my guardians in this world. She has not yet fallen victim to the lamentable fate of a car accident. During that period, our families resided as neighbors. Shin Yochu's parents, engrossed in their scientific pursuits, afforded her little attention. My parents, ever compassionate, could not bear witness to a child in isolation. Thus, they often extended invitations for her to join us in our home for play. Gradually, my abode transformed into her second sanctuary, and she would share our meals nearly every day. My parents frequently showered me with gifts. I shall also prepare a unique tribute for her. Indeed, within the sanctuary of my dwelling, I have appointed a quaint bed in the guest room exclusively for Shin Yuchu. On those nights when she found herself restless and unable to find solace in solitude, she sought refuge within my abode. In gratitude, Shin Yuchu often takes the initiative to impart her knowledge to me. She has inherited her parents' remarkable intellect and has been a prodigy since her early years. Under her tutelage, my academic accomplishments were undeniably among the finest in my cohort during that period. Those days were imbued with a certain splendor, yet they were abruptly truncated by the tragic demise of my parents. It was an unremarkable summer evening, marked by a tempestuous storm replete with thunder and lightning, when the parents of Shin Yuchu unexpectedly reached out to mine, conveying that Shin Yuchu had inexplicably vanished. The teacher had informed us that she had departed from school as per her usual routine, yet now there was no response from her home. We were deeply engrossed in our studies and unable to leave. We sought assistance in the search for the child. As my parents conversed with Shin Yuchu's father, I found myself seated by the window, gazing into the tumultuous weather outside, engulfed by an inexplicable sense of foreboding. My mother implored my father not to venture out, warning that braving such extreme conditions was fraught with peril, yet the apprehension of danger lingered in the air. Ultimately, the concern for Shin Yuchu proved to be an insurmountable burden. After all, she was a child whom they had witnessed grow and flourish. It was indeed on that tempestuous night that her parents' vehicle, succumbing to the treacherous roads, inadvertently plunged into the river. The tragic discovery was only made at the break of dawn, when the sun finally illuminated the sky. Meanwhile, Shin Yuchu, who had been missing throughout the night, reappeared at that moment, adorned in a pristine outfit, her countenance reflecting bewilderment as she gazed at me, tears shimmering in my eyes, having hastened out of the house upon receiving the distressing call. In the aftermath, I posed a query to Shin Yuchu regarding her whereabouts on that fateful evening. She remained silent for an extended period, and ultimately, she confided in me that during that night, she had escorted a lost little boy back to his home. The boy resided in a well-known, affluent neighborhood within the city. Shin Yuchu grasped his hand as they traversed a considerable distance, eventually locating the boy's family servant. Just as she was on the verge of returning, the heavens outside were saturated with a relentless downpour, while thunder and lightning commanded her to pause. In that moment, a young boy whom she had previously aided graciously welcomed her, inviting her to take refuge in his abode. On the morrow, she was escorted back by the boy's chauffeur. Yet everything had metamorphosed beyond recognition. Upon hearing this narrative, I would often inquire, with tears glistening in my eyes, if she had resolved against returning home. Why did she not reach out to her family? She had long memorized my parents' telephone numbers, and she was acutely aware of their worries. Why then did she choose silence? Shin Yuchu found herself at a loss for words, only capable of bowing her head and offering an apology. Subsequently, her parents relocated, while I, due to familial circumstances, found myself in dismal conditions. Much time elapsed, and it was only upon awakening to the constraints of my identity system that I unearthed the truth behind it all. The boy she had returned home with that fateful day was none other than the male protagonist, Rong-yi. The intertwining destinies of the protagonists had commenced long before, as my parents endeavored to navigate the rain-drenched path. Calling out her name amidst the tempest, she walked hand in hand with Rong-yi, the latter proudly displaying his collection of opulent toys. Young Shin Yuchu was enraptured by the novelty of these splendid treasures, momentarily losing sight of many things. When she finally regained her senses, my parents had already succumbed to the frigid waters, forever lost in their quest for her. Our family was destined to exit stage left, leaving Shin Yuchu to wrestle alone with the intricate tangles of her heart. Ultimately, with the gentle companionship of the male lead, she gradually found her way to solace. Yet I awakened, re-entering their realm anew. In that moment, in my quest to draw near to the second female lead, Lu Shuyan, I diligently endeavored to gain admission to their high school, unintentionally crossing paths with Shun Yuchu once again. Years had passed, and she still referred to me as her elder sister, her heart brimming with a sense of childhood indebtedness. Allow her to openly convey her affection for me in public without hesitation. The distant maiden longs to have me perpetually by her side as a means of recompense. Yet, she overlooks the fundamental truth that we are not bound by blood, we are not genuine siblings. Her overwhelming closeness, born from a sense of atonement, has obscured the lines that separate us. To onlookers, this gives rise to a completely divergent interpretation. It was at this juncture that Roan E began to harbor resentment towards me. Having journeyed through the innocent and radiant days of youthful exuberance, the protagonists should have arrived at a pivotal moment where they unveil their deepest sentiments to one another. Yet, owing to my presence, they gradually distanced themselves. Shun Yochu's undue focus on me led Roan to lose her hold on her emotions, ultimately turning her against me. Despite my efforts to elucidate, even going so far as to declare that I had no need for such insincere contrition from Shun Yuchu, the circumstances remained unaltered. Therefore, when Roan E uncovered my feelings for Lu Ruyan, as if intentionally vying for my affection, he has also enticed Lu Ruyan away. Shun Yuchu devotes himself to me with the same fervor that he desires Lu Ruyan to bestow upon him. Lu Ruyan harbors tender feelings for Roan E, while Roan E finds himself captivated by Shun Yuchu. Shun Yuchu persistently pursues me, eager to provide restitution, whereas I long to rescue Lu Ruyan. Consequently, we are ensnared in an entirely peculiar cycle. Roan E has become fatigued by it all. He perceives me as an incessant irritation, yet he hesitates to dismantle the favorable image he has meticulously crafted in Shun Yuchu's perception. Time and again, he devises intricate schemes, employing every conceivable tactic to isolate me, to diminish my presence, to expel me from their realm. He assumes the role of the male protagonist, and with a mere flick of his finger, the entire Roan family rallies to his support. In stark contrast, I find myself accompanied solely by a companion who can only sigh, mourning the nature of the male lead's privileged existence. My infamy escalates, and he gradually deviates from his original persona of virtue and generosity. On this occasion, Roan E has ensnared me in a malicious abduction scheme. Shun Yuchu, utilizing an enigmatic strategy, compels him to alter his position, conceding that the incident was orchestrated by the adversary of the Roan family. I am left pondering the extent to which this individual before me grasps the underlying verities. I pose an alternative inquiry. If I were to assert that only one among Roan E and myself could endure, what would your response be? Cease uttering such absurdities. When she summoned me, a bittersweet smile graced her visage, her eyes imploringly locked onto mine. Inform your sister, whatever your heart wishes, she shall bring it to fruition for you. Upon hearing this, I reclined once more, unable to stifle a sardonic reply, then proceed to end my existence. Shun Yuchu remained silent for a few moments. This remains unspeakable. Apart from this issue, all else is permissible. I propose that you summon Roan E to kneel before me in contrition. Nonetheless, should you fail to orchestrate my downfall, I shall assuredly bring about his demise. Asya, hear me, I persistently pursue my beloved. Even the typically poised and distant Shun Yuchu has begun to experience a spark of ire. She elevated her voice with fervor. Previously, Roan E had erred profoundly, and all of it was due to my influence. You may as well direct your animosity towards me. In the fleeting moment that followed, she recognized her verbal misstep, suddenly raising her gaze, her countenance paling in an instant. Yet it was too late. It became evident that you had been aware of it all along. I smiled, yet her troubled heart ultimately succumbed. Asya, I found myself in a state of turmoil, longing to convey my sentiments, but the words twisted and turned upon the tip of my tongue, and in the end, nothing emerged from my lips. Naturally, she could not respond, incapable of articulating the moments in which I had been wronged. She was acutely aware of the truth, merely observing with an unfeeling gaze. Initially, Roan E unjustly accused me of pilfering his esteemed timepiece. In my eagerness to demonstrate my innocence, I willingly opened my backpack. However, he unveiled a contrived surveillance video to implicate me. Soon after, I encountered mysterious individuals who conspired against me. In a cruel twist of fate, I found myself engaging in a transaction with them, selling the very watch in question. They even went to the extent of fabricating a transaction record and surreptitiously accessing my information database to deposit a sum into my subsidy card. At that moment, I was rendered speechless, enduring the stigma of a thief throughout my high school years. It appears you were aware of all this. As I laughed, tears began to flow down my cheeks. In that instant, I felt an overwhelming sense of disappointment. If my parents were to discover that their sacrifices were made for such individuals, what emotions would they experience? Shinyuchu, the neighborly sister, her one straight spine, gradually bends beneath the weight of my every utterance. When I find myself besieged by a multitude of unseemly labels and tormented by the school, I would fix my gaze upon those faces filled with ire and pledge to unveil the veracity. Yet in solitude, how could I challenge the formidable Rome family? They wielded the collective might of their lineage to devise schemes for Rome. Each time I endeavored to speak, deeper snares would materialize, leaving me to witness helplessly as the misconceptions surrounding me multiplied. If only in that moment you had risen to advocate on my behalf, for they do not place their trust in my words. They ought to trust yours, for your boyfriend is indeed a man of flesh and blood. Am I not human? Do I genuinely merit such anguish? I beheld Shinyuchu articulate her thoughts, each utterance measured and weighty. Her hands quivered perpetually, longing to approach, to tenderly stroke my head as she frequently did, only to be thwarted by my resolute motion. Shinyuchu, to whom do you pledge your fidelity? I regarded her with a smile, yet tears cascaded uncontrollably down my cheeks. I beseech you to halt your utterances. She arched her back, her entire form quaking as she yielded to a violent paroxysm of coughing, as though enduring unbearable torment. Yet I dismissed her entreaty, persisting. You yearn to atone publicly, to alleviate your remorse, all the while preserving your pretense in obscurity. You aspire to possess both, yet you are incapable of properly attending to either. I have borne a lifetime of adversity to encounter someone of your caliber. Shinyuchu abruptly rose to her feet, and with remarkable intensity, struck her own visage with her palm. Her spectacles were sent flying, leaving 5 distinct imprints upon her fair countenance. Her lips quivered, rendering her voiceless. The once haughty and solitary woman lowered her gaze before me. She knelt upon the frigid floor of the hospital, her voice barely a whisper. She spoke. Sister, I acknowledge my transgressions. Asha, I yearned excessively. I have neglected to nurture both you and Romi. Tears flowed from her eyes, each drop a testament to her sorrow. She raised her gaze to meet mine, her eyes fractured, precariously poised on the edge of hopelessness. What must I do? How can I attain your forgiveness? I beseech you. With your uncle and aunt departed, all I yearn for is your survival, your flourishing. As she spoke, her trembling hand extended toward me, seeking to graze the hem of my garment. This affliction, a product of years of psychological turmoil, rendered her incapable of suppressing the convulsions. Whenever those haunting memories resurfaced, yet I merely retreated slowly, gazing down upon her from my elevated vantage point. I proclaimed, Shinyuchu, I am no fool. I shall no longer be swayed by your verbal reassurances. With that, I turned and exited the hospital room, leaving her in solitude, collapsing into silence, her body convulsing. She gasped for breath, a peculiar flush spreading across her pallid visage, on the verge of asphyxiation. Yet she still endeavored to call out to me as I turned to depart. Axia, she struggled to summon a faint, sorrowful smile. Can one genuinely withhold forgiveness from their sister? Before I could articulate my thoughts, a voice abruptly erupted from beyond the door, insistently pressing against Shinyuchu. It was by Ningbing, who had surreptitiously overheard the entire conversation. She was positioned atop Shinyuchu. Her eyes, swollen and glistening, brimmed with uncontrollable tears, and her entire frame quaked with fury as she declared, How can you still possess the audacity to seek Brother Xia's forgiveness? You must be determined to plunge him into despair for the sake of your own happiness. Do you genuinely possess any semblance of conscience? I have surrendered Xiago into your care. Is this the manner in which you repay him? I offer my sincerest apologies. Shin Yuchu feebly articulated these three words before succumbing to the depths of unconsciousness. Bai Ningbing tumbled away from her. Unable to contain her anguish, she grasped her hair in despair. You wretched scoundrels, I place my unwavering trust in you. Yet I have wronged him as well. I am a wretched being too, the young girl lamented, veiling her eyes with one hand. Her cries emerged hoarse and fragmented. Brother, I was mistaken. I should have harbored faith. How much have you endured throughout these years? I'll admit my choices. I never intended to treat you in such a manner. Her cries resonated with an intensity that captured the immediate attention of the medical personnel. Shin Yuchu was promptly escorted for urgent medical care, while Bai Ningbing resolutely remained in the chamber. She fixed her gaze upon me, unwilling to move even a fraction. Xia Gij, would you accompany me, please? Lu Rian regards you in this manner. Should you linger with her any longer, it may herald your downfall. Regard it merely as my heartfelt supplication. Her youthful countenance, imbued with an air of desperation, unveiled her unvoiced plea. Yet, I remained indifferent to her distress. When a bodyguard from the Lu family arrived to escort me, I advanced without a backward glance. Why? Were you not always the one who held me in the highest regard? She inquired vehemently from behind, her voice quavering with emotion. Why is it that upon our reunion, your gaze is exclusively fixed upon Lu Rian? We were, without a doubt, the closest of friends. Is it not so? I find myself lingering on these words, unable to restrain a sardonic smile upon my countenance. When you once deemed me vile and malicious, you never envisioned that we would evolve into the closest of companions. Even though you scarcely surpass Lu Rian, you both embody an equal repugnance. The helpless silhouette of a girl has been abandoned. This time, I do not cast a glance back. I remain oblivious to the extent of Lu Rian's knowledge concerning the occurrences in the ward. Yet from that day onward, she has refrained from gracing me with her presence. Perhaps she is uncertain how to confront the circumstances, or perhaps she has eternally been unable to embrace the truth. The essence of the moonlight has long since metamorphosed. Lu Rian avoids the prospect of encountering me, and I can only devise my own means of self-destruction. After a series of futile attempts sleeping from heights, biting my tongue, lacerating my wrists, and submerging myself in a bathtub, the Lu family has far too many eyes upon me. The housekeeper, Wu Ma, wept as she dialed Lu Ruyan's number. Miss, I beseech you to return and see the master. He is on the brink of despair. Yet, Lu Ruyan ultimately remained absent. Every object within this house that could potentially lead to my demise has been meticulously stowed away. Even the windows have been sealed shut. In moments of solitude, I find myself repeatedly battering my head against the walls, cursing Lu Ruyan's ancestors through the ages. Surprisingly, Lu Ruyan does not take umbrage. Instead, she begins to subtly insinuate to the servants within the villa that she has not sought out Rong during these past few days. Moreover, she has taken to bestowing gifts upon Mikis to luxury automobiles, exquisite timepieces. Ties each day, a new token appears at my bedside. I resolutely cast them aside, yet she persistently insists on presenting them. Sometimes, I awaken early enough to glimpse her hurried departure from my room. Thus, Lu Ruyan and I remain locked in this stalemate. The system warns me that time is of the essence. I reassure her that it matters not, for there will inevitably be someone who cannot remain idle. The first to lose her composure is Bai Ningbing. She has frequented the Lu residence numerous times, intent on whisking me away, even going so far as to involve the elders of the Bai family. In her desperation, she threatens them with self-harm, demanding that they intervene and rescue me from Lu Ruyan's grasp. At present, the Lu family finds itself under the unwavering control of Lu Ruyan. When she asserts her position, she exhibits an utter disregard for the authority of others. Both factions remain obstinate, culminating in an exceedingly uncomfortable predicament. The tension has escalated to the brink of overt animosity. Ultimately, Bai Ningbing, in the presence of Lu Rian, delivered a vehement declaration. Had I not been forcibly removed in the past, you would never have had the opportunity to claim a place by Xia Ji's side. You are but a trespasser who has stumbled upon a gem, yet you fail to appreciate its worth. These words ultimately incited Lu Rian's wrath. That evening, as I hovered in a delicate balance between slumber and consciousness, I was unexpectedly enveloped by the warmth of a body beside me, accompanied by a potent aroma of liquor. Upon parting my eyelids, I beheld the visage of Lu Ruyan, her countenance marred by an expression of profound sorrow. I had never witnessed her in such a vulnerable state, reminiscent of a forlorn puppy. She grasped my hand with fervor, pressing it against her heated cheek. "Husband," she uttered, "your affection is a treasure I have stealthily appropriated." Her tone was imbued with a playful spirit. She further declared, "I do not hold dear. I do not falter in my capacity to cherish. I merely find myself, for the moment, at a loss regarding how to address this. I am not your husband. You vanished just as the engagement ceremony was about to unfold. Thus, I am not even your betrothed." I interjected with a chill, interrupting her. Lu Ruyin was struck by my words. Her form suspended in midair. The haze of intoxication in her gaze slowly evaporated, restoring her clarity of mind. However, shortly thereafter, she opted to simulate inebriation, feigning ignorance of the situation as she leaned against me. "That is a falsehood. My Xia holds me in the highest regard. He shall be my one and only husband. Yet, as I behold her, I can only muster a sense of indifference. I declare, Lu Ruyan, at this stage in your life, it seems rather futile to persist in these antics. You ought to, as you once did, devote yourself unwaveringly to Rong-yi. Only then shall I preserve a semblance of respect for you." In the end, my words ignited a fury within Lu Ruyan, and she struck the pillow beside me with a vehement blow. Half a hand swiftly descended into the plush down feathers. For an extended moment, I raised my gaze, encountering her crimson repose. What am I to do? From the very instant of my birth, my parents perceived me merely as a tool. Had it not been for Rong-yi's initial support, I would have long since succumbed. How am I to withstand this? She lamented in despair, her voice a poignant cry. The voice was heavy with deep despair. After a brief pause, she tempered her tone, as though she had found her way once more. "Ultimately, it is the multitude of transgressions you have perpetrated in the past that has led us here. It is quite all right, Asha. I harbored no lingering resentment towards you." She had succumbed to madness. I observed her anguish with an indifferent gaze. I responded, "Indeed, he embodies such innocence and kindness. Then, pray tell, what holds you back from marrying him? Is it mere reluctance? Lu Ruyan, have you genuinely come to this realization yourself? Your demeanor is profoundly distressing. It is no surprise that Rong-yi cannot harbor love for you. You appear utterly unworthy of anyone's affection. In retrospect, I can only lament my own blindness. It remains ambiguous which words ignited her ire. She reverted to her familiar tactics, forcefully subduing me, her hands firmly clasping my throat. "It was you who pledged to always treat me with kindness, you who vowed to remain by my side." She scrutinized me, her voice imbued with despair. "What manner of expression is this? Were you not the one who held me dear above all others? Why can I not perceive your love?" She cried out, her voice revealing an unacknowledged sense of helplessness and trepidation. Tears blurred her vision, yet she persevered, searching my visage for traces of bygone affection. My cheeks flushed a deep crimson beneath her accusatory finger, yet I merely responded with a frigid smile, mirroring the stark reality of our situation. "Thus it is. You regard me with palpable disdain. While others indulge in the bounty of my table, you opt to raise arms against me." In the end, just as I teetered on the brink of surrender, she found her resolve once more. In a swift motion, she withdrew her hand. "You are deliberately inciting me. You would sooner embrace death than remain at my side." In that ephemeral instant, her typically majestic and upright figure appeared somewhat diminished, looking rather forlorn and desolate. She stooped down, coughing violently, then turned away, nervously attempting to reassure herself. "That cannot be true. You still hold affection for me. Asya, you are merely troubled by me. I shall comfort you." As she spoke, she advanced and enveloped me in a fervent embrace. "Shall we wed? Let us cherish our lives together henceforth, regardless of the opinions of others. In the days to come, it shall be solely us." Her voice bore the weight of profound grief. As tears drenched my shoulder, with a sudden force, I thrust her aside, and in one swift movement, I struck her across the visage. "Lu Ruyan, act as you wish, whether it be to slay or to degrade. Do not speak such words that repulse me," I replied icily, while Lu Ruyan turned her face away, bearing the mark of the strike. At last, she rose in silence to retrieve the coat that had fallen to the side. As she approached the door, a sardonic smile graced her lips. Xia, you reproach me for showing favoritism towards Rong Yi, yet can you genuinely assert your innocence? Shin Yuchu has now cut all connections with you and the Rong family for your sake, and Bai Ningbing is completely devoted to you as well. You utter nothing but the truth. It appears they have shown me great kindness. Therefore, I must forsake you and opt for them in your stead. I chuckled heartily behind her, causing Lu Ru Yin to seem as though she had been burned by my mirth, which compelled her to retreat in a state of alarm. The next day, an unforeseen individual graced us with their presence. It was none other than Rongyi. Her gaze was captivated by the tie adorning his neck, her mind adrift in contemplation. Meanwhile, my unkempt appearance appeared to delight Rong Yi even further, his laughter resonating with increasing fervor. Indeed, there is no necessity for such melancholy, he observed. Despite your tarnished reputation, Yu Chu has advocated for you on this occasion, imploring me to reassess my position. She sincerely regards you as her brother. As he articulated these words, he elegantly lifted his glass in my direction, alluding to another individual in the process. When Bai Ningbing was initially welcomed into the Song family, she incessantly spoke of her brother. She longed to return and find him, yet the Song family prohibited it. Therefore, I counseled her that when she had matured enough, her return to her brother would bring him immense joy. Ultimately, she did reunite with her brother. Since that time, she has steadfastly abstained from alluding to him. Upon contemplation, the rationale emerges. She has come to understand that the brother she once idolized as the quintessence of goodness and virtue has now regressed into a crass, materialistic persona. With each word she articulates, her smile expands, while his gaze remains steadfastly locked onto my countenance, keen to relish the subtleties of my expression. Yet, he ultimately could not perceive that which he longed for. In response to his utterance, I simply smiled and replied, indeed. Bai Ningbing is undeniably extraordinary. Were she too, akin to Shin Yuchu, create imitation products to market to your company, it would be even more advantageous. Rong Yi's demeanor swiftly grew frosty as the smile upon his visage evaporated completely. To dismantle the Rong family, to restore my honor. This is the genuine remuneration I previously sought from Shin Yuchu. In recent years, the Rong family has evolved into a pioneering technology enterprise, dedicating nearly half of their fortune to this innovative scientific research endeavor. Yet, on the day of the launch conference, the findings showcased by Shin Yuchu were merely outdated, substandard products that had been cast aside for decades. The Rong family, placing profound faith in Shin Yuchu, their future matriarch, has found themselves profoundly disillusioned by this unforeseen outcome. Jipping has cut off the economic lifeline of the Rong family. Nevertheless, in light of this dire predicament, young Master Rong is disinclined to engage the authorities or risk incarcerating his beloved. Instead, he approaches me, agitated and desperate. My tolerance for his fruitless lamentations has dwindled. In an abrupt surge of irritation, I grasped the water cup from the table and cast it at him. Seizing the fleeting opportunity of his distraction, I advanced to his side, clutched his tie, and constricted around his neck. The young master, you have now succumbed to my grasp. I murmur softly into his ear, Xia, with such transgressions against me, Lu Ru Yin shall never grant you her forgiveness. At this moment, he remains somewhat composed. Yet as he gradually yields to the oppressive atmosphere, his eyes roll in distress, and he can no longer uphold his serene facade. When Lu Ru Yin made her entrance accompanied by her retinue, her gaze was instantly drawn to me. In that ephemeral moment of our shared glance, I perceived a subtle trace of joy upon her countenance. What was the origin of her elation? Was it the satisfaction derived from my guilt being unequivocally laid bare, illuminated by the ethereal moonlight in her presence? Or perhaps it was the exquisite pleasure of revisiting the past, elevated upon the moral summit to exact retribution against me, denouncing my flaws and misdeeds? She remarked, Wang Xian, all that preceded was but a performance of your own design. You have undeniably remained steadfast in your nature. My judgment of you was not in error. As she uttered these words, her countenance bore an unsettling severity. In the ensuing moment, I eased my hold ever so slightly, and the voice of the young Master Rong, breathless and quivering, ventured, "I can aid you in your escape. I place no trust in you. Indeed, you simply desire to solidify your position in Lu Ruyan's affections. Permit me to lend my assistance. Let us partake in a wager." He articulated these sentiments, apprehensive that I might refuse. His visage twisted in a sorrowful manner as he feigned a smile directed at me. I knitted my brow. Attentively listening to the schemes, he murmured softly in my ear. Ultimately, a wave of liberation enveloped me, and I acquiesced, loosening my hold. Lian hurried over at once, drawing the trembling Rong Yi away with the intent of escorting him to the hospital. As she departed, she glanced back at me, her eyes filled with unspoken depth. I trust that during this period, you will reflect on how best to convey your gratitude to Rong Yi for his adept management of the situation with Lian. Truly, his approach is exceptional. Upon her return from the hospital, she ensured that all surveillance concerning me from the Liu family was lifted. Disregarding Wu Ma's counsel, she commanded the bodyguard within the chamber to expel me. "Miss, I beseech you, you shall undoubtedly lament this choice in the end." "I shall never," she retorted with a frosty laugh, her countenance once more imbued with an air of undeniable triumph, as though she had thoroughly fathomed my essence. I played my role, feigning reluctance to depart, which merely served to reinforce my previous tumultuous actions, a mere stratagem to ensnare her attention. Lu Ruyan's expression darkened further. "Rong, he was indeed correct. I had been excessively lenient with Zhu. You truly require a lesson," she declared. At this moment, I could not help but bow my head in acquiescence. Gently, I posed a question to her. "After all this time spent together, have you ever genuinely entrusted your faith in me?" At my inquiry, she knitted her brow, seemingly contemplating the multitude of gestures I had extended towards her heartfelt care and affection I had bestowed. Yet, those earnest feelings paled in comparison to a fleeting vision of beauty captured beneath the eaves on a rainy day during our youth. Ah, xia, the delicate dance of pursuit and retreat, when performed excessively, it loses its allure. Her countenance bore a trace of compassion, yet ultimately, she offered no further words. With a final remark urging me to engage in self-reflection, she shut the door. I turned to find Rong Yi, enveloped in shadows. When I next opened my eyes, I discovered both Rong Yi and myself tethered to a precipice. "Release him. I command you to set Qi Xia free." Did you hear my words? I can perceive the anguished pleas of Bai Ningbing. She has endeavored to surge forward on numerous occasions, only to be held back by others. Our captors pay her no mind, merely fixating their attention on Lu Ruyan and declaring emphatically, "Lu, you must make a choice. Life and death reside within the confines of your thoughts." Lu Ruyan's countenance darkened in an instant. "How much do you desire? I shall bestow it all upon you. Just release them. We seek not your wealth, but rather your two most treasured men, Lu Daitai." Luo derided, further intensifying Lu Ruyan's melancholic expression. I observed her exchange a glance the marksman in the distance had already taken his position. Yet, in a fleeting moment, a heartrending cry emanated from Rong Yi beside me. He was grasped by the head, precariously teetering on the edge. As Rong Yi regained his composure, his voice quivered as he called out to her, "Xiaoyan." He repeated, "Xiaoyan. Do not preoccupy yourself with my existence." The wound upon his forehead, a result of my own hand yesterday, remained swathed in bandages. In this moment, he stands against the wind, akin to a slender bamboo poised to snap at any instant. Lu Ruyan's gaze momentarily lingers upon his injury, a fleeting shadow of remorse crossing her features. "Speak truthfully." The man behind him abruptly seized him, causing Rong Yi to stagger several steps, teetering on the brink of collapse. The atmosphere within the arena instantaneously grew somber. Lu Ruyan's murderous intent felt almost tangible, while Rong Yi, casting a glance my way, unveiled a faint, playful smile. "You have suffered defeat once again. Are you not apprehensive that they may unveil the truth of your orchestration behind this entire affair?" At this, Rong Yi let out a soft chuckle. "They remain unable to unveil the truth. Have we not traversed the years in such a manner?" He remarked, lifting an eyebrow in my direction, his grin becoming ever more self-satisfied. Yet those he had enlisted were drawing him ever closer to the brink. "Miss Lu, should you fail to arrive at a decisive conclusion, We shall be obliged to reach one on your behalf. Xiao Yan. As Rong Yi teetered on the precipice of despair, he cried out in torment, invoking the name of Lu Ruyan. Lu Ruyan's hands tightened into fists, delivering a final admonition to her disciples. I shall not permit your escape without consequence. Cease the frivolous discourse. Decide promptly. As Rong Yi appeared on the verge of descending into the void, Lu Ruyan's grasp reluctantly slackened. She cast a sorrowful glance in my direction, her voice quivering as she inquired, Xia, was this also your design? You seek no recompense, you merely desire my choice. Is it to ascertain who holds greater significance in my heart? As she uttered these words, a sardonic smile graced her lips, tinged with self-derision. I have indulged your whims far too often this time. I cannot permit you to falter once again. Predictably, Lu Ruyan chose Rong Yi. In that instant, silence enveloped the atmosphere. Bai Ningbing, who had been restrained, surged forward and struck Lu Ruyan across the face. Meanwhile, Rong Yi bestowed upon me a triumphant smile. Farewell, he declared before turning to depart, and those who had constrained me finally relinquished their hold. Upon witnessing this, Lu Ruyan let out a subtle sigh of relief. Xia, do not resort to such childish methods to test me again. Yet, her words became ensnared in her throat as I instinctively withdrew, positioning myself at the edge of the precipice. With merely half a step further, I would plummet into the abyss below. Lu Ruyan trembled, crying out my name, imploring, do not seek death for the sake of such a person. Bai Ningbing, pinned to the ground, wept inconsolably, saying, please return. Let us share the days that lie ahead. I was wrong in the past. I should not have shunned you out of jealousy. I should never have surrendered you to that despicable individual. I softly shook my head, serenely observing them. This marks the 101st occasion. What? You have selected the 7th instance. I have genuinely cherished you, if only at least once throughout this duration. You had chosen to unwaveringly place your faith in me. We have not arrived at this moment without purpose. As I spoke, I noted her escalating anxiety, which ignited a sense of satisfaction within me. My gaze then shifted to Rong Yi. You may be oblivious, but I have left a small surprise for you all. I gestured towards the second button on my shirt, unveiling that it concealed a pinhole camera. Everything you have just uttered and performed has been transmitted live. I long to return home, yet I refuse to depart burdened with the weight of disgrace. The grievances I have endured throughout the years are undeniably genuine, and I shall not be remembered as a thief, even in death. In truth, I approached this world and its denizens with a heart brimming with goodwill. For a fleeting moment, Rong Yi displayed a flicker of panic, but soon he seemed to recollect something and regained his composure. Indeed, the Rong family, adept at fabricating even surveillance records, skillfully manipulates technology. It is a mere trifle for them to extinguish my live stream. In Rong Yi's mind, the purported broadcast likely faltered before it could withstand a single second. Yet, in the end, he yielded to the brilliance of my smile. Flustered, he seized the phone from the individual beside him, as the internet became awash with discussions about him, brimming with hashtags such as Rong family prince is theatrical and wealthy young master. Bullying such terminology perpetually rises in the realm of trending searches. Numerous individuals create recordings from live streams as irrefutable evidence. In the footage, he openly confesses to the torment he has inflicted upon me throughout the years, accompanied by his inflammatory remarks, all unveiled with striking clarity. Observing this, Lu Ruyan, unable to suppress her astonishment, also retrieves her phone. Rong Yi, engulfed by despair, advances towards her in a desperate attempt to seize the device from her possession. Yet, it was ultimately a step taken too late. Lu Ruyan abruptly raised her head, her complexion pallid, fixing her gaze upon me with unwavering intensity. Deception. Everything was a fraud. Rong Yi cried out, accusing me with fervor, but then abruptly recollected something, casting a desperate glance around. In the end, he unearthed the tender romance narrative that was rightfully his. The female lead, Shunyu Chu, was conspicuously absent. His eyes shifted toward me, and I did not hesitate to illuminate the truth. It was she who aided me. It was she who supported me. I generously elucidated. Even the camera was bestowed by her. You shall spend the remainder of your lives nursing animosity toward one another, inflicting exquisite torment upon each other. As I spoke, my body reclined, plummeting from the precipice beneath the watchful gaze of all. No, the cries behind me began to crescendo, uncertain whether they originated from Lu Ruyin or by Ningbing. Yet I was beyond caring. In the moment I descended into the depths of the sea, my soul soared into the ether. I beheld Lu Ru Yin kneeling in place, her face awash with tears, gazing toward the direction of my fall. With a profound gasp, she expelled a torrent of crimson blood. Despite her fervent attempts to liberate herself from her captors, an instinct compelled her to plunge toward the precipice below. Yet, in that fleeting instant, she was intercepted by the members of the Bai family. Meanwhile, in the distant urban sprawl, Shun Yuchu remained silent, her fingers deftly dancing across the keyboard as trending search terms proliferated on her screen. A deep crimson laceration marred her wrist, blood trickling down, while she languidly turned her gaze toward the window. After a prolonged silence, she gently closed her eyes and softly murmured, "Xia, you must harbor great resentment toward your sister, but it matters not. I have avenged you, even at the expense of my own well-being. When we meet again, I shall treat you with the utmost care." Just as I stood on the precipice of departing this world, I heard the system's electronic voice resonate. The profound yearning of the individual has been discerned. They ardently desire the survival of the host. The mission has been successfully fulfilled. Rewards have been granted. Upon awakening, I beheld my mother, her hands fervently clasping mine with uncontainable joy. A miracle has unfolded. The doctor proclaimed that your affliction has dissipated overnight. I could no longer contain my emotions and threw myself into my parents' embrace. We wept together, enveloped in the warmth of one another. How splendid it is! At long last, I have returned to the sanctuary of home.